Hey everyone, are you ready to unlock your full potential and take your career to new heights? Embrace the growth mindset and you'll discover the way to supercharge your future career success. In this video, we'll discover the power of continuous learning and how it can improve your career trajectory. So let's get into it. So what is the growth mindset? The growth mindset is basically a commitment to lifelong learning while also viewing failures in a positive light. So let's take the first bit where a commitment to lifelong learning. I think lots of people give up learning when they give up school and recognize that they have quite a negative, I would say, relationship with learning. And maybe it's because of the exams or particular teachers they had, but lots of people give up learning quite early. I think I made quite a big commitment to learning. I did obviously a master's degree in maths and then went and did an actuarial degree. But yeah, decided to basically stop after that because I felt like that was enough. But having a growth mindset would mean that I would continuously learn and continuously seek out opportunities to grow and develop. And I feel like I've now taken that up a bit more through, reading and doing additional professional qualifications. Growth mindset is really about, never being done learning and continuously looking to upgrade and develop your learning. Upgrade and develop your understanding of the world. Then the second piece, obviously dealing with failure. So lots of people take failure as an indication that they should stop, or they're scared of failure, so they're not going to progress things. But the growth mindset would kind of encourage you to view failure as success, view failure the fact that you're pushing boundaries, and basically use it as an opportunity to learn. So when you combine those two elements, you've basically got the growth mindset. The opposite is a fixed mindset, where you're kind of done learning and you view any failure as kind of an attack on yourself. That's what we want to avoid. I think you see it quite a lot in the work world where people think they're kind of done, they kind of know it all, and that's exactly what you don't want to do. You want to focus on the growth side. And obviously Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, gives a much more in-depth kind of detailed description of the growth mindset than I just did. So what's the power of continuous learning? Continuous learning is essential because the world's constantly changing and evolving. So what you learned 10 years ago might not be relevant today. So for example, when I was at school, Pluto was still a planet and dinosaurs didn't have feathers, but now I'm told that the opposite is in fact true. Dinosaurs do have feathers and Pluto is no longer a planet. So you can just see how we're constantly learning and developing, and facts are often quoted as having a half-life. So that's how quickly, the full kind of knowledge base of a certain subject gets turned over, and different kind of areas have different half-lives. So the world is constantly evolving and growing, and you need to make sure that you're constantly learning and developing to keep up. If you don't, then you'll fall behind. And then what you tend to find is, I've seen this so many times, is people get quite embittered or don't really understand why the world's not living up to their expectations. Another key example of this was when I was doing my actuarial studies, I learned all about, interest rate models and how their main assumption was that interest rates could never be negative, but we were living through at that moment a negative interest rate environment, so the model didn't work. And that's just a classic example of where, the world had moved on and the models haven't kept up, and that's the environment we found ourselves in. Make sure, the reason why it's so essential and why it's so powerful is because if you embrace continuous learning, then you'll constantly be able to keep up with the developments around the world. I think obviously in terms of career as well, it's so important because what remains true in a career, obviously within the career space as well, I think it's so important as well, because obviously the kind of facts that underpin your career probably change at a relatively quick pace, given depending what industry you're in. I mean, I definitely found this with doing the ESG CFA, where previously a lot of the sustainability information wasn't relevant, perhaps 10, 20 years ago, but sustainability has just become so important now, given the issues we have with climate change and also just the global population growth, which means that a lot of this stuff is now relevant, whereas in the past it might not have been. And also, I would say taking the ESG CFA actually allowed me to pivot into a new area and kind of evolve my career in a completely different trajectory into an area of growth, rather than staying with my previous job as a manager researcher. So obviously you want to keep upskilling, just because not only are facts changing, but the job market's changing rapidly as well. And I gave the classic example there of how I'd started off as a hedge fund manager researcher researching hedge funds, and now I've pivoted into sustainability, and that's basically just following how the job market has changed. So the hottest job in the market when I started was hedge fund research, and now it's sustainability. And by continuously learning, upskilling, taking on additional learning opportunities, I was able to make that transition. Some of the ways I managed to make that transition were through things like reading, so reading around the topic. Obviously your job is embedded within the world somehow, so external information is relevant, so it's really important to stay up to date by reading books. Getting a really good mentor, I think, is helpful, that is potentially in the area you're trying to move into, and I think that can really help you grow and develop. And that was critical for me to learn as much as possible, and it kind of helps you leapfrog, so you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. The mentor can help you in that journey. And then the final version is just like, skills through courses. So I mentioned ESG, CFA, there are loads of other ones out there, but also just courses that your workplace might put on as well. So I did one on negotiating once, which was really, really helpful. So yeah, definitely embrace taking these. And I know it can be hard to like take time out of your day, make space in your calendar to do these kind of longer term professional development things, but it can really pay off in the long term. Then the final piece about growth mindset, we obviously spoke about the importance of continuous learning, is dealing with that failure. So when you're moving into a new area, you're obviously going to be failing, stumbling quite a bit, and you have to have the ability to deal with those failures and the mindset to look at those as a positive rather than negative. So a key thing here is resilience, so your ability to bounce back from failures. And Nassim Taleb even talks about anti-fragility in the sense that failures are good because you learn so much from them, and you obviously have a burst of energy post-failure to try and make up for it. That normally leads you to going, your career trajectory to kind of catapult afterwards. So definitely build those abilities and those skills to deal with failures and setbacks, and having a really good support network is important there. And just a positive mindset on dealing with failures, I think, is really important. It's really hard sometimes when you're in the middle of it, but I think being like, I'm really glad that failure happened. People talk about having a failure journal, for example, where you write down all your failures for the day, and then you kind of reflect on them and realize that actually, 5 years down the line, or maybe in a few weeks down the line, you're perfectly happy with those failures. They actually turned out to be a good thing. So what can seem really hard in the short term could actually turn out to be quite a good long-term thing. So there's dealing with failures, but there's also dealing with like a blockage or something when you're trying to progress. And Adam Grant's book, Hidden Potential, is really good at providing some actionable kind of points around this. So I think he speaks about taking side projects or just recognizing that sometimes things aren't linear. So you can be like, hammering away at a stone, but it's the 250th blow that causes the rock to split, for example. Like, things don't happen linearly. You can put a lot of pressure and time, and then suddenly it can just go bang. So I think it's worth bearing that in mind when you're moving forward into areas where you're less familiar and where you're growing. So there we have it. That's my video on the growth mindset. I hope you enjoyed it. So we spoke about what the growth mindset is, why it's powerful, why it's relevant in today's job market, and then provided some methods and strategies for dealing with setbacks and blockages when you're trying to employ the growth mindset. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to hear more from me, don't forget to check out this video here where I discuss many more things to do with career and just reaching your full potential. Thanks.